the 61st Annual ISNA Convention, the American Muslim, Forging Faith and Action.
Today's topic is inclusive vision, fostering collective empowerment for gender and youth. MashaAllah. So today I will have Sister Muslema to go first, say a few words, inshallah. Quick introduction about her. If you, those who you guys not aware of Sister Muslema, MashaAllah, she's coming from really, MashaAllah, really good background. She was born, raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, and raised in San Diego, California. MashaAllah, you have fans back there, sister. May Allah accept them. MashaAllah. And then she graduated from University of California, San Diego, with a double major in religious studies and Middle Eastern studies. During these years, she served a number of different roles in her local MSA at UCSD, as well as MSA West. MashaAllah, after graduating, she left to study in Egypt, where she spent the better part of the next 7 years. MashaAllah, she completed a bachelor's program in Sharia from Al-Azhar University in Cairo. Also completed almost 2 years of graduate work at American University in Cairo as well too in Islamic studies. MashaAllah, sister, without further, her bio, MashaAllah, pretty big. May Allah accept everything. But just to highlight a few things here, she's serving the Southern California community in various capacities, including religious instruction, directing youth and youth adult program, university chaplaincy, and offering community care at the local masajids and organizations as well too. So without further ado, I would like to hand on mic to sister. May Allah accept you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, barakallahu fikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. It's truly an honor to be with you all in Dallas, Texas for the 62nd ISNA Convention. It's also a little bit bittersweet because Dallas has taken some gems from Southern California, and we forgive you, but please give them back. We have some amazing community members who are now part of the Dallas community. I won't say their names, but we have a lot of California family in Dallas, and we're losing Californians to Dallas. And actually, when I've come here and when I've heard about everything that's happening in this community, I can actually completely understand why. Alhamdulillah, this is such a beautiful, blessed community. May Allah continue to bless it. May Allah continue to increase it. Also, I just wanted to thank the moderator, Brother Bilal, unable to walk. He came and moderated for us today. And, that it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of sincerity. It takes a lot of work to put these kinds of events together. For everyone who brought this convention to Dallas, for everyone who's volunteered behind the scenes, I cannot even imagine the countless hours that has gone into shifting an entire convention to another city. May Allah bless you, may Allah reward you, may Allah increase you, and may all the benefit that comes from what everyone gets today and tomorrow and throughout the convention, may Allah put that in your mizan and allow it for it to be blessings for you and your family in this life and the next. Barakallahu fikum. Truly appreciate your effort. Now on this topic, in terms of inclusion, and in particular, it's supposed to be more of a discussion, but just some opening remarks about including women, including young people, and including their voices in a way that's not just tokenizing, but substantial. The first thing that I want to say when it comes to this topic of truly appreciating who you have in your community, as women, as young people, and also men as well. Everyone needs to be appreciated. Everyone needs to have their place in serving the greater community. We look to the Quran, and we look to the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and we look to the great generations after him, and we look to our tradition. And the first thing I want to say, especially to women in this community, women in this hall today, is that the ultimate reason why we as a community should not be tokenizing women is because Allah did not tokenize women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, one sahabiya, one companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she notices how the language of the Quran seems to, even though it's the masculine plural, right, includes women. She starts to worry, what about us, right? What about the reward of the women? Do we also get reward? Are we also included in the reward that's spoken about in the Quran? One woman asks a question, and Allah reveals the famous verses from Surah Ahzab. And I'm going to read the verse, the translation of the verse, and I want us to just think about what is Allah saying to this sahabiya, and what is Allah saying to every woman, every believing woman for the rest of time. For Muslim men and Muslim women, for believing men and believing women, for devout men and devout women, for men and women who patiently persevere, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast, for men and women who guard their chastity, for men and women who engage much in Allah's praise. For them has Allah prepared forgiveness and a great reward. One woman asks a question, and any ambiguity is clarified. The reward in this deen is for men and women. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are spiritually equal. The only thing that differentiates one person from the next is their taqwa, is their mindfulness, their God consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses in the Quran, but I'm only going to read one. In Surah Ali Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Never will I allow to be lost the work of any of you, be they male or female." The reason I chose this particular verse is because there's a word that maybe we've heard before. It's a word that I've heard from women in our communities. This idea that women can do so much work. Women can make the flyers, do the marketing, organize the entire thing, right? In communities, and they get none of the credit. They get none of the appreciation. They get none of the thank yous. And aside from not getting recognition, if anything goes wrong, then that's when it's like, sister so-and-so made this mistake. And so for a lot of women in the Muslim community, they feel that even when we get involved, there's an experience of erasure. It's like we didn't do it. Now, for women who experience this, and they don't just experience it in community life, they may experience it in the workplace, they may experience it in a classroom, they may experience it in their homes, in their families, right? A lack of appreciation, a lack of receiving credit. What I want to say is the only credit, yes, we want to rectify our communities. Definitely, Islah is something we aim for. We want to have insaf, we want to have justice, we want to have fairness. But the most important credit, the most important appreciation, the most important one that sees everything that is done and everything that everyone else ignores is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we're getting our credit from Allah, if we're getting our reward with Allah, if Allah is our goal, if our hisab is with Allah, then there is no effort that is lost from anyone, be you male or female, no matter what condition your community's in. So for people who feel sometimes defeated, they go into a community space and they try to get involved and then it doesn't work, return to this intention. I'm not doing this work for this world. I'm doing this work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My service is for Allah. My efforts are for Allah. In your lifetime, you may see changes, you may see progress, your community may be more inclusive, inshallah things move forward. But even if you don't see that progress, none of your efforts are lost or wasted when you did them for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His credit is the only credit that matters. And He sees what no one else sees. He sees the pain, the hurt, the difficulty. He sees how hard it may have been for you sometimes. So I want to say that before our communities include us, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already included you. You're already included. It may take time for people to accommodate that reality. And the closer we get to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding us to in the Quran, what the Prophet Muhammad has guided us to, what the companions themselves exemplified, right? The closer we can get to that, the better we're doing as a community. And the further away we get from that, the greater indication of actually the disease that exists. And there are diseases that are the reason for exclusivity, right? So I want to say sexism is a spiritual problem. It's a spiritual problem. It's not just a social problem. It's a spiritual problem for a person to feel I'm better than you simply because of my gender. No, you have a daraja in marriage. No one denies that. But in front of Allah, who knows who's better? Only Allah knows who's better. So anytime a person feels I'm better than someone else, there's an arrogance. Anytime a person feels that I can't listen to this particular voice because it's a woman, because she comes from that country, or he comes from that country, or because this person's young, there's a problem. And it's a spiritual problem. It's not just a social issue. It means there's something that's wrong in the heart. There's something that needs to be fixed. In the heart, there's an ana. There's an I. And the I has covered the place where a person is actually supposed to listen to huwa, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as much as we're able to get rid of the I of the ego, and we can listen more to the he of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our interactions with one another, in the way that we include each other, in the way that we organize our community programs, in the way that we set our sights for longevity, not short-term, easy solutions that seem to be convenient, but really looking at things from a principled perspective. And as much as we're able to be God-conscious, to be principled, then we get the actual results that are meant for us in al-akhirah. Sometimes we get the results in this life, and that's good, but our ultimate purpose is not the results of this life. You can die and your community didn't get better. You can work 20 and 30 years, and you didn't see major progress. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we are raised on the day of judgment, that will be a mountain of good deeds if the intentions are sincere. And someone else can do very little compared to you, and the results in this life can be amazing. And again, if we try to be results-oriented for this life and not results-oriented for al-akhirah, one of the mistakes that happens when we do that is if it's for this life and it's not about al-akhirah, then our means and our methods tend to deviate. There's this idea, do the ends justify the means? The only time the ends justifies the means is if the ends are rooted in al-akhirah. Then that's called, because the ends are justified, because the ends are in al-akhirah, your ends are about paradise, your ends are about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you're going to be principle-oriented. And if you're principle-oriented, it doesn't matter if you succeed or don't succeed in this life. You still succeed in al-akhirah, and that's what matters. If you're results-oriented about this life, I need to see this change right now, guess what happens? And you're not thinking about al-akhirah, and you're striving for islah, fitna, drama, major problems, divisions, infighting. All kinds of problems happen because when it's rooted in this life, we lose our way. There's isti'jal, this idea of rushing towards something that maybe it's going to change, it's not going to change immediately, it'll change 2 months from now. Like waiting the course, having hikmah, having wisdom. And so, to everyone who's doing work in their local communities and on the larger scene, the nasiha, whether you're trying to include young people and their voices, whether you're trying to include women and their voices, is to be principle-oriented with your intentions rooted in al-akhirah, and not to be results-oriented with your intentions rooted in this life. If we get that equation wrong, That's basically what a lot of the modern ideologies did. Whether it's communism or feminism or any other ism that you see, it's not rooted in God. It's rooted in some kind of change in this life, some kind of methodology that people came up with that doesn't have anything to do with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we want what we do to be blessed, and we want what we do to count. We don't want these efforts to be lost. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping track of what all of us do. Whether you're male or female, whether you're young or old, no matter what background you come from, continue to consider yourself included, even when your communities don't include you, because Allah has included you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this discussion. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, Sister Muslema. May Allah accept you. Takbir. Takbir. I'm not fundraising right now. I'm just asking you to say takbir. The audience is kind of dry, but may Allah open the doors up. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah, very nice. To be honest with you, yes, I just had my ACL surgery a week and a half ago, so I'm here, MashaAllah. Didn't want to miss the opportunity. But at the same time, I would like to, give shout out to my wife and my kids. My wife has been, mashallah, taking care of me. So may Allah accept. She's dealing with my whole craziness. May Allah accept her and then everybody else out there. So just keep in mind to make dua for my family. That's what I'm asking you guys to do. So that's all. Without further ado, let's move on to our next speaker. Mashallah. The next speaker that I have to invite, you have to understand. This whole journey that he did is beyond imagination. And I would like to let you know that Dr. Yusuf Ziya Kavacki, mashallah, he's a pioneer of DFW. And I'm going to say a few words. His biography is mashallah, intense and is pretty big. I'm not doing a great job of justifying his biography. So I want, due to a time limit, please forgive me, Dr. Yusuf, but I wanted to say a few words about him. That mashallah, Dr. Yusuf Kavacki was born in Turkey. His rise of scholarship began early. By the age of 10, he memorized the entire Quran and became a certified Qari. At the age of 10, I don't know what I was doing, don't ask me. I was not at the mental state to do actually memorizing the Quran at that time. But this shows Dr. Yusuf caliber of at the age of 10, he became memorizing the Quran, then became a Qari at that time as well too. MashaAllah, very nice. Then he continued his studies, a bachelor's degree in Islamic Studies from Institute of Higher Islamic Studies and a law degree from College of Law in Istanbul University. Then he also received a PhD in Islamic History and Culture from Istanbul University, Faculty of Letters. Therefore, he worked as assistant and associate professor at the Institute of Islamic Research, Istanbul University. Residing in Dallas, mashallah, Texas, he served as a scholar in resident, mashallah, for the IANT, Islamic Association of North Texas. That's mashallah, it's one of the pioneer community, been there for many years, known to be one of the early stage in Dallas, Texas, the masjid was built. The large mosque of North Texas, he's mashallah, he's been there for many years and serving the community. He's specialization in fiqh, mashallah, aqidah, and also tafsir, and Quran, and many more out there. So without further ado, Dr. Kavacki is founder of both Safa Islamic Seminary Program and also IANT Quranic Academy. Mashallah, has been running pretty well for many years. So without further ado, I would like to call upon Dr. Yusuf Ziya Kavacki to come and say a few words, and after that we will have a discussion with him, inshallah.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. رضي الله تعالى عنا وعنكم وعن كافة المؤمنين أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you with the greeting of Salam, again Islam, again Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know the subject is empowerment of women and youth in detail. I very much appreciate when last night I read the preparation of the question and explanations, the subject very well prepared by Brother Bilal. I am thankful publicly to him. Very nice. Now I have 10 minutes. What I am going to do in Turkish, I am from Turkey, we have a proverb. You begin from Hanya, end up in Konya. You begin from A, but end up in Z, Y, maybe go farther. This is what I am going to do. Dear brothers and sisters, in my youth days, 1955s, so many years ago, I read a booklet, published, printed in Switzerland, in a small city called Geneva. There was an Islamic center over there run by Saeed Ramadan. Who is that person? My colleague, rahmatullahi alayh, father of Tariq Ramadan, in Western Europe, known activist, brother. Saeed Ramadan had this organization, Centre Islamic or Islamic Center. There was pamphlets and Al-Muslimun, a big magazine. I wish I could have a copy of that today. I read it, I had it, but seems I lost here and there that magazine. Over there was a pamphlet, small, in Arabic, in French, in English, same thing, saying ثلاثة مشائل كبرى في العالم الإسلامي Arabic. 3 big problems of Muslim world. Writer was saying recently I met a scholar, did not name the scholar. While we were discussing, these 3 big ummah's problems came out. I am writing here, maybe 30 pages, something small. This alim, later on I thought that is Sudanese alim, rahmatullahi alayh, I felt because of ideas. Hassan al-Turabi, very well trained, very interesting guy. In France, Sorbonne, in England, well trained brother. He was saying that this author, not mentioning the name of the scholars, this scholar said, 3 big problems in Muslim world. First, unity. I will skip that one. Second, ijtihad. Of course. I am, yes, you sit here. I am skipping that one too. Third, he said, women. In the history, unfortunately, sisters suffered. This is beyond religion, beyond faith. I mean, in China, I studied earlier as legal issue for my professorship degree. Women suffered before Islam. In India suffered. In Russia suffered. Not Muslim also. In Muslim lands, some part areas, Muslims suffered. After Islam, also women, excuse me, women suffered, oppressed, suppressed. Ya akhi, ya ikhwanna, oh dear brothers and sisters, Quran says, "Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa unsa." In many cases, but structure made some rules where sisters a bit suffered. I know in our Turkish Ottoman history, there were very strong women sisters, sultans. We called sisters sultan. Sultan is male word, but in our Turkish culture, sultan, the word is ascribable to sisters. Sultan, who were really very strong. In Islamic history, of course, Khadijatul Kubra, radiyallahu anha, fantastic. What a nice lady. Aisha, Ummuna, our walida, Aisha, radiyallahu anha, fantastic. Fatima wa Fatimatu Zahra, fantastic. Very strong, nice. We owe a lot of things. But we can go to Balqis in Quran. This Balqis. إن الملوك إذا دخلوا قرية أفسدوها وجعلوا أعزة أهلها أذلة. Fantastic. What theories. You know, Sulaiman alayhi salam is like a prophet, but what a prophet. Like emperor. Very interesting, not like his father, Dawud alayhi salam. So sends a letter. This letter goes, إِنَّهُ مِن سُلَيْمَانَ وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. Then Balqis, his sister, calls the Malak, leaders. أَفْتُونِي فِي أَمْرِي. You tell me the view. Democracy, cracia, democracia, looks like that, but real one, not hypocritical. So she calls, the Malak say, وَالْأَمْرُ إِلَيْكِ نَحْنُ أُولُو بَأْسٍ. We have power. Who this Sulaiman is, we can fight with him. But lady says, then they say, well, amru ilayki. You order us. This is our view. We can fight. We are strong. Then lady says, innal muluka idha dakhalu qaryatan afsaduha. If there is a war somewhere, that is destruction. Shortly, I am. So he goes to Sulaiman alayhi salam, and then the rest of the story. Asiya walida, who? Son of Pharaoh, Firaun, raised Musa alayhi salam. Fantastic lady. How big system she had like a secret organization supporting good and khair. So I am going to finish my subjects. Unfortunately, what that alim said in that pamphlet is true. Of course, I am not accusing Muslims or anything. West is worse. America included. Women, unfortunately, suffered. May Allah bless this ummah to really understand and practice Islam. Let me make a little cold joke, something in my expression. I have 3 daughters, 5 granddaughters. Because of that, I have no choice. Understood? Thank you very much, sisters, brothers and sisters. Salamun alaikum.
Now this deserves, mashallah, takbir. A little louder, takbir. Takbir. Mashallah, Sheikh. Mashallah, jazakallahu khair. Just by listening to him get inspired and getting motivated is another level of understanding on that. Mashallah, jazakallahu khair, Sheikh. May Allah preserve you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy upon you and your family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your daughters and your grandchildren as well too, inshallah rabbil alameen. Without further ado, I have another speaker, mashallah, very nice. I'm actually really happy to announce him as well too. Imam Nadim Bashir, mashallah, began his memorizing the Quran overseas and then pursued his Islamic education in Dewsbury, UK for 7 years. There he received ijazat in various Islamic sciences, including Arabic, fiqh, hadith, tafsir, tajweed, and qira'. He graduated in 2003 and has served the deen in the US until today, mashallah. As a hobby, Imam Nadim attends workshop classes nationally that focus on leadership, youth, marriages, counseling, conflict resolutions, religious science, education, and community development with current domestic challenges for American Muslims. Well, with that said, mashallah, Imam Nadim Bashir, those of you guys from Dallas, you guys do know him. And if you guys are not from Dallas, he's mashallah also resides an imam at Epic Masjid as well too since 2012. With that said, he recently started 2 years ago a new program to help the community, which is called, he launched it, Islamic Arbitration and Meditation Services. That's what it called. Mashallah, a project to help Muslim community members through challenges such as divorces and organizational and business conflicts. We do need that, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept Imam Nadim Bashir. Without further ado, I would like to call upon him to say a few words. Then we'll begin our Q&A session as a discussion with all the speakers together, inshallah. Jazakallahu khair.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Before I begin, I want to say that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as we are gathered here today, may Allah gather us in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la, in the companionship of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his Sahaba, Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our last a'mal our best a'mal. And I also want to take this time to appreciate and acknowledge all the volunteers who helped put together this entire conference. As an imam serving at a masjid, you have to put in countless amount of hours to put together small events. So when you talk about a conference on such a magnitude, on such a scale, like the way we see here today, there are hours that were put in. So we make dua for all the volunteers and everyone who participated and pitched in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in their life, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them in this dunya and the akhirah. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. The subject, women inclusion, I want to say one thing before I begin. You know, someone may be asking that, why is it that when it came to the men, they were all coming to the podium speaking. Sister Muslema decided to stay there. By the way, I want to make this clear. We never told her to stay. There was some kind of misunderstanding. So that's why she decided to sit down and provide, mashallah, a few gems. And then when Imam Yusuf Kavacki came, he decided he wanted to stand up, and I thought, you know what? This is a person, by the way, if you don't know Imam Yusuf Kavacki, this is a person that I have seen growing up, since I was a child. I've been in Dallas since 1985, and this is a person that I have seen growing up. And the one thing about Imam Yusuf is that today, while I talk to the people who have been in Dallas for so many years, they now tell me, and I tell them too, that Imam Yusuf used to tell us things a long time ago, but because of his intellectual level and the way he would converse with us, it will go really right over our heads. We will not be able to grasp and internalize what he was trying to say. But subhanAllah, years later, we now understand what Imam Yusuf was always talking about. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. To be truly honest, when I received this topic of women and youth inclusivity, I was really shocked, because I can understand that we are living in the 21st century, and with all the challenges that we are facing, and with the unlimited resources at our disposal, we are still having this conversation, unfortunately. I have to say that there is no organization. When I say organization, I mean successful organizations, that they can succeed and they can reach the pinnacle of their success without women and youth inclusivity. It cannot be possible. Yes, you can have a community, but a successful community is when you have the men, the women, the youth, the children, and you have the seniors, everyone included in every single discussion. That is what you call a model community. That is exactly what we learned from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, there was a time when our parents came here to this country, and they were doing things very differently overseas, where there were no women in the discussion when it came to religiosity. Women were not part of social affairs. So the women were confined to their homes to just simply raise children. But at the same time, we saw a disconnect there too, that this model does not work, because the parents, and especially the fathers, are going outside and religiously they are growing. But because the women are usually staying at home and they are so busy taking care of their children, eventually what we began to notice was a disparity in terms of their religiosity. And then they came here to America and they felt that they can apply the same method, the same situation here in America, and we learned very quickly that that is not possible. Brothers and sisters, the reality is that if you observe the community of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, everyone was involved. And pay attention to the word community. If you don't, because the word unity is part of the word community. If you have no unity and you don't have inclusivity, you have no community. You may have a population of people, but you will not have a model community. The Prophet ﷺ, he created an atmosphere where women were involved in education, community affairs, donations, nursing the wounded, and that not only that, but in terms of their spirituality, they even came to the Prophet ﷺ and they even said that, Ya Rasulullah, you need to give us a time of the week where you can come and answer our questions and provide us some kind of spiritual nasiha. And the Prophet ﷺ did not say that, you know what, you just come with the men and I'll just address you at the same time. He understood that the women were a vital part of the community, and he took out time every single week to go and address them. Not only that, but there were times where the Prophet ﷺ, he even entertained women who were coming to the Prophet ﷺ, bringing forth their complaints. The point is, brothers and sisters, that there was no community of the Prophet ﷺ without the women being involved, without the women being included, and that also includes the youth. So keeping this in mind, I also want to share with you two examples from history that teaches us that if you truly empower women, if you truly give them the resources, and if you truly support them and educate them, wallahi, they will be amazing. They will be an amazing reinforcement and supporters of what we're trying to do in our Muslim communities. The first example I'm going to share with you from history is the Mongol Empire. And you can actually go and read, there's a book that you can find even on Amazon, it's called The Mongol Queens. So Genghis Khan, if you study his life, his empire lasted for 150 years after his death. So he himself, while he was alive, his empire was one of the greatest and one of the largest that human history has recorded. He lived only to the age of 65, but people were always wondering that how did the Mongol Empire exist without Genghis Khan himself for 150 years after his death? The answer is very simple. Though many people actually believe that it was his sons who carried on his legacy, the truth is, it was his daughters. And not only his daughters, but his granddaughters and his great-granddaughters, they're the ones who continue the legacy of the Mongol Empire. These influential women, they had defied gender norms of that time. They served as advisors, skilled politicians and diplomats. They even helped maintain the unity and the expansion of one of the largest empires at that time. It's mentioned that through their marriages, as they grew, they became so skilled that people would eventually come to them and they would seek their consultation in all their matters. That now you find even a book written on this particular matter, which goes to show you that if you put your trust and if the community comes together and really they help and they support our sisters and our youth, they can truly become gems of the community and they can become a legacy going forward. Another example from history that you can see where women played such a vital role is the UDC. And for those of you who don't know what the UDC is, before I even tell you what the UDC is, as we are approaching the elections, especially for those of you who are living in Texas, or if you're living in Louisiana, or Alabama, or Mississippi, or Georgia, you're going to find a lot of people coming to these polling stations. You're going to see a lot of rallies, people with Confederate flags and Confederate shirts. And you really got to ask yourself, well, where does all this come from? After the Civil War in the United States, there were many people who began to ask the same question, that what will happen to the legacy of these Confederates? 20 years later, these people who fought in the army, and they lost. They lost. They were now wondering that how will our legacy be remembered? And it was at that time that in the 1800s, in Nashville, Tennessee, there were a group of women who came forward, and they said that we need to create our organization, and not only create an organization to remember the Confederates and these people who fought our battles, but we need to ensure that our textbooks remember these people. And that is why when you travel in these states, which we generally refer to as the Bible Belt, when you go to these states and you see Confederate statues, the UDC, which stands for the United Daughters of Confederacy, they are the ones behind it. They are the ones behind all these statues. They are the ones who are behind of reviving this legacy of the Confederates, which is really amazing if you think about it, that you have the women at that time stepping up. But when the women stood up at that time, the men, they felt the need to support them in order to keep their legacy alive. The reason I share with you the story of Genghis Khan and the UDC is so that you and I, as a Muslim community, we can also understand that when our women are standing up, when our women are becoming skilled counselors and skilled psychologists, and they are taking on different roles in the community, they are starting organizations, it becomes imperative for us that we support them. And along with that, there are so many young brothers and young sisters, the youth, when they come forward, as a Muslim community, we need to support them too. Look, I'll tell you honestly, as an imam and dealing with a lot of communities that I've come across and meeting with a lot of imams and so forth, often you'll find people say that these young people, they don't know they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to do things. And this is why I've said this in many khutbahs, that the youth, they need to also understand that they need to be humble when it comes to their elders to take advice. But at the same time, when it comes to our elders and our seniors and those who came to our communities earlier, if you don't get the youth involved today, you have no Islam in the future. Wallahi, if you don't get the youth today involved, you won't have a future. And when the youth do come forward and they do want to do something, advise them, guide them, but then we need to support our youth. So in conclusion, there's few things I do want to say, is that while we are talking about women inclusivity in our masajid, in our Islamic organizations, and we're talking about youth inclusivity, there's one important thing that we also do have to keep in mind. See, for the last few years, there's been a very strong call for women inclusivity in our masajid. For the last, it has really started in the last 20, 25 years. And it has picked up momentum, it has gained momentum over the years. But I do want to say this. As a community, the women and the youth do not feel that let's just go and let's just take over. We just have to get into the thick and the thin of everything, and let's just make our presence felt. It's not going to help. If a community wants to succeed, we will not be inspired by these social isms that have overtaken our Muslim communities. Because all that we truly need is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's all that we need. We don't need these social isms to teach us how to conduct our affairs. To believe and to say that these social isms are going to teach us is almost as if we are saying that Allah and His Prophet ﷺ did not teach us enough, that we need these social isms to fill in the gaps. That's not the case. So what I'm pleading to to all of you here, brothers, sisters, youth, is that learn how to work with each other. You cannot have a successful Muslim community if you only have women involved, or the men involved, or only the youth involved. A successful Muslim community is when everyone brings forward their talents and they help and they put their minds together to overcome the challenges of their community. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may He bring our communities together, may Allah bring our hearts together, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the strength and the tawfiq to overcome the challenges of today, and may He grant us the tawfiq that we can create leaders who overcome challenges for the future. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Wa jazakum Allah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, takbir. Takbir. MashaAllah. Imam Nadim, MashaAllah, brought the house down. It's just, Jazakallah khair for your beautiful advice, MashaAllah, very nice. You know, and then, you know, one of the beautiful things is that, MashaAllah, everybody knows how much time that we put into it. And to be honest with you, women, education, and because of their being behind every man out there, we would not be successful. So, you know, I think we should appreciate everyone, every woman in the house, of your family, your mother, your daughter, your sister, and your wife. I think you should be really appreciable in making dua for them as well too. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them and allow them to be more successful, inshallah. Without further ado, I would like to start a discussion. I know there's a couple questions that I have on behalf of the community. It's not my question, it's just the community question. I just wanted to let you know that. And then I would like to actually, is that something? Yeah. So, Sister Muslema, I would like to begin with you. Is that okay with you? I have two questions for you. So you have to pick one of them. One title is gender inclusivity. The second topic is youth engagement. Which topic would you like to go first? It doesn't matter? Okay. Oh, you have your own question? Okay. Mufti Hussain, Kamani, Ziya, mashallah. Please, ahlan wa sahlan, Sheikh. Tafaddal, mashallah, please. Mashallah, Sheikh. Mashallah, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for joining us, Mufti Sahab. Very nice to have you. Sister Muslima, I believe the question is, number one, the first question is, how can we ensure that our approach to gender inclusivity goes beyond tokenism and truly empower women in leadership roles within the Muslim community? That's number one. You want to address that first?
We'll start with that.
Okay, let's do it. Bismillah.
Okay, so on a practical level, how do we go beyond tokenism? So first, if you're having a panel about women's inclusivity, make sure you have more than one woman on that panel for women's inclusivity.
MashaAllah. Takbir. MashaAllah. Takbir. Highlight. Best thing ever. MashaAllah.
Barakallahu fikum. So that's, I mean,
Yeah,
forgive me, I'm speaking as your sister, I'm speaking from love, alhamdulillah. And I was happy to see the topic, and I thought there might be more discussion about youth and also interracial diversity also within our institutions. But going back to this thing about tokenism. So a lot of times tokenism is really just having a symbol so you can put a check mark that you did something that people can't blame you for afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So you know, that does happen in communities, and it happens when they're trying to make a transition from where they're at to where they're trying to go. So on one hand, I want to say that when that happens, and I've heard Ustad Dalia Mujahid also say this, is that someone can invite you for some purpose, and they have an intention, and maybe it's just an absent-minded tokenism, but you as a woman, when you go in, you have your own intention, and you have your own decision about what you plan to do when you go and get involved in a particular space. And again, if that intention is rooted in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's rooted in worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it doesn't matter why they did something a certain way. You go in with your own internal empowerment and you make the space not your own, because it's not mine, but I make my space what it's going to be as a worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as an individual woman. Now, at an institutional level and as a community level, whether it's young people or women, it always starts with education. It always starts with education. Women have to be taken care of psychologically, spiritually, and educationally in their deen. When women are empowered in their deen, when young people are empowered in the knowledge of their deen, when they get involved in the community, in service, they're getting involved from a place of knowledge, understanding, and qualification. Okay? Qualification is huge. We have a lot of institutions that are underfunded and staff that are not qualified. And a lot of the issues that are facing women, and yet whatever the issues are in the community, whenever you look into it, you find an underfunded institution with unqualified staff. Underfunded institution with no women in its board. Underfunded institution with no women involved in program committee. Underfunded institution with no women involved in major decision making that affects women. So I want to say that there's an aspect of it which is financial. I mean, how many masajid are ready to hire a resident female scholar? They can't even pay their imam properly. Like so it's leading the Friday prayers and leading. So we have again, I feel like most of these issues are actually very spiritually rooted. Why can't we fund our staff and they're qualified up at a particular level, hire a non-Muslim consulting company and they'll tell you what you should be paying your imam, what you should be paying your youth director, what you should be paying your teachers in your Islamic school, your principal in the Islamic school. These people need to be paid properly. And so you get what you pay for. So if you're like, you know what, we're gonna pay a half salary, you're gonna get a half person who's gonna come and do a job, and they're gonna make bad decisions, not because they're bad people, but because they're not qualified to be there in the first place. So alhamdulillah, land is important, buildings are important, but more important than the land and more important than the buildings are staffing these institutions properly with qualified people. And again, how do you get that qualification? Education. Whether it's young people that you're getting involved, whether it's women who are becoming more involved, we need to be educated in our deen, in the foundations and the fundamentals, and we have to get past being an event-based community. And Dallas, alhamdulillah, is actually pretty awesome. You're not an event-based community. That's one of the reasons why you're so awesome. Many communities around the country are event-based. So the person who's been volunteering for 20, 30 years, the lady who's been cooking for all the programs, and she has a lot of reward with Allah, but she doesn't know her basics. She doesn't know her fard ain. The young people that are trying to be involved, they're getting educated about activism at school. They're trying to bring that to the masjid. The elders are getting worried because they're like, what are you saying? Micro what? Microaggressions. And they're using all kinds of terminology people don't understand. Okay, well, we need to educate them and we need to make that accessible for them. So again, funding and putting our financial resources behind institutions that are going to give people foundations, not foundations that are, again, with the Sunday school programs that I've seen and I've heard about, people think they're getting educated. And that's even worse because it produces two issues. On one hand, your community stays with a insufficient Islamic education. Your community stays kindergartners for life when it comes to Islamic studies. They are constantly reliant on the imam for basic answers to basic questions that they should know and they should understand. And they should have been, it doesn't take more than 2 years to get your foundations down. But we'll keep them busy volunteering, we'll keep them busy doing things, but they will never teach them what they need in a fundamental way. On the other hand, what it does, because people have been attending and they've been hearing things, is that they believe they know more than they do know. I've been attending programs for years. I have so much experience, but you don't have your foundations. So giving people foundations is really, really important because then when they're involved in community, they're really informed. And they can also tell when leadership is doing something wrong, right? Because in ignorant masses, you can get away with things. But if someone understands their religion, the fard ain, and the major subjects of it properly, when they're being mistreated by the imam, when they're being mistreated by masjid leadership, they know, wait, this is not appropriate. This is not okay. Why? And how do they know that? Because they've been taught. So investing in education for the community, and again, not events, not big popular events that get crowds and sell tickets, but real substantial education so then they have something to stand on. Stop giving people fish. Teach them how to fish so they can be contributors in the community in an authentic way. And I'm gonna plug this just really briefly. We saw this in, like, my husband and I, we saw this problem because we'd get invited to events around the country and in beautiful masajid, beautiful people, and then we'd leave feeling sad. And we're like, why do we feel sad? Because we see this wonderful community volunteer who's been there for so many years. And we're like, but they don't know much. This person who's been part of this masjid for 20, 30 years, but they don't know, like they're asking very simple, basic questions, but they've been coming here every, like 3 or 4 times a week. Something's wrong. Young people who have the same issue, the same questions come in. So we developed this program, if anyone's interested, it's called the Anas Ibn Malik Community Servants Program. It's a 2-year, go at your own pace, online seminary, pre-recorded. You really can't fail the program. It's just about being able to, for people who are very, very busy mothers or young people in high school, they can take this program. And it covers Fard Ain topics, but it also covers, from an Islamic perspective, community service. What is khidmah in Islam? What are the ethics of community service in Islam? So we have those kinds of topics included in the program. And it's meant to just empower people. When people say, okay, after 2 years, do I become an ustad? No. You become a community servant, but you become a qualified community servant. And so I really think education and qualification is at the heart of empowering women and youth in our communities.
MashaAllah. Takbir. MashaAllah. Takbir. MashaAllah. So I do have questions specifically prepared for all of you guys. I'm going to start with Dr. Yusuf, and I'll come to you guys, inshallah. Dr. Yusuf, I have a question for you. MashaAllah, Dr. Yusuf, how important is education in fostering an inclusive vision? What educational initiative or programs can be implemented to promote gender and youth empowerment? From the bottom. On the side. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
First, thank you very much. There is in a hadith, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. I am not more knowledgeable, maybe, than you, dear brother, about this subject. First, this educational system, I grew up in Turkey, studied madrasa, university education, everything.
Can you put the mic
I was involved in them, teaching everything. So I felt sometimes useless. 2 thick books. I remember Turkish history, 400 page. Then literature, Turkish literature, 600 page. I mean, you can never, student can cover. It is oppressing, it is suppressing type of education. This school system, I saw too much oppression, suppression. What I think, like 15 people, halqa, circle, halqa. A teacher, fatherly, motherly, affection, love, mahabba, mawaddah, love, care. This is education. What? But this like, hey, do this. I mean, exam times, you cannot sleep. Whole night you need to study because your algebra teacher, 400 pages, pressing you as if zulum khana. No, school must not be zulum khana, oppressing, suppressing. there must be love, care. So, from my perspective, good communication, small group like that, very rarely. I think we went through the elementary school, middle school, university, everything. Very rarely we remember our teachers had strongly positive effect on us, very rarely. We might have 40 teachers, but only 2, 3 may come out to our mind. Why? Because of the love, affection, care. This is what I saw in my life. This educational system must be upside down, changed, and Islamized. Of course. Thank you. Of course. Social studies, Islamized. History, Islamized. Even physics, chemistry, like so much al-ulum al-fanniyya, scientific things, lab and everything, must be Islamized. Must begin with Bismillah, must be well put into perspective, connected to Quran and Hadith, because this is blessing of Allah. Ilm comes from Allah, any type of ilm. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, very nice. Mufti Hussain Kamani, this is for you actually. So, it's quite a bit, there's 2 questions in one question. So if you could, however you chose to break it down, that makes it easier for the audience. One is, how can we balance traditional values with the need for progress in promoting gender and youth empowerment? That's one. What role does this balance play in shaping a unified and compassionate community?
What's the last part again?
So, what roles does this balance plays in shaping the unified and compassionate community?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, khususan ala sayyidi rusuli wa khatam al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-azkiya wa ashabihi al-atqiya, amma ba'd. I wanted to start off by just first and foremost apologizing for the delay in my arrival to this session. I had another session that I was scheduled for with the young folks at Mina across the campus. So after I finished that, I came over. The question, balancing tradition and modern challenges is one that is very difficult. It's difficult because there's this idea that modern challenges require radical solutions. And if we're trying to build these radical solutions, do we go solely based off of the problem that's ahead of us and the first thought that comes to our mind that fits within a political, liberal, secular, Republican, democratic framework? Or is my solution meant to address a modern issue in a modern world while ultimately solving the akhirah for us, making sense out of our dunya and our akhirah simultaneously? For Muslims, what makes our solutions different isn't just the fact that we have a solution. Our solution is the solution, because it originates from wahi, revelation. It comes from Quran, and the Quran, when understood and applied properly, addresses challenges at many levels. It will address the social justice element to it. It'll address the economical element to it. It'll ensure that it solidifies and further strengthens communities, societies, families. It'll ensure that it educates people to become better human beings. It guides them in the dunya and also guides them in the next. Muslim scholars play a very important role in providing these solutions, because for them, providing solutions to challenges is a whole procedure, it's a process. you'll notice that scholars, academics, put Islam to aside even for a moment, just from a broader lens, are usually the last people to any party. If there's any policy change happening, if there's any study that's occurring, or anywhere where there is scholarly work involved, those people will usually be the last one because they are the ones that are given the task of being tedious. These are the people that everyone else is relying on. That what they've done, what they've come up with, the solution they've come up with, actually is the right one. It's ethical, it's correct, it lines up with revelation. In Arabic, the process of coming up with these technical solutions from a jurisprudence standpoint is called ijtihad. And if you go to the root of that word, it connotates that hard work, that juhd. When we speed things up, the benefit of it is that we have real life solutions that are able to solve people's problems in real time. The challenge with speeding things up is that you do a so-so job. Then when you look back at it, you think to yourself, man, what did I do? Was this what should have actually happened? Should we have actually cooked this loaf of bread like this? It was supposed to be a 3-hour, cook, and we made it into a 1-hour cook. It's chewy, it's not right. Something's off here. That's exactly what happens when it comes to ijtihad and juhd. Now, with that said, on the scholars of the community, there is a tremendous responsibility because there is this tendency of holding back when we face new challenges because a new challenge is risky and it involves stepping out of the box and saying something that may not have direct precedence. But for the imams in our community, and I feel out of place saying this with Dr. Yusuf and Imam Nadim being here, but just speaking, imagining they're not in the room right now, and just speaking to friends that are in front of me, there needs to be an ongoing conversation between the community and the imam, so there's a perspective that circulates from both sides. When I returned from my studies and arrived in America for my first imam position, this was like in 2007. I remember this, that for the first almost 3 or 4 years, I spent most of my time, if not all of it, just hanging out at college campuses. Because it gave me an idea. It was very different from going to an MSA event, speaking there and leaving. It was very different just sitting with people and talking with them, just hanging out with them, just listening to them, hearing their challenges and what their problems were, and also understanding from that scholarly imam standpoint the reluctance that we have to accommodating people at times has very serious and real ramifications. It hurts people, not just as individuals, but as societies, and it has an impact on their iman. I remember I was sitting, when I first, again, new graduate, very reluctant, had very little confidence even till today, but at that time, even less when it came to my own ilm. So when someone asked a question, I would pick up a phone and call my teachers. So one of my teachers in England, who I had studied ifta with, kind of like a roadmap to the specialty of Islamic law, his name is Sufi Tahir Wadi, very pious, righteous man, very pious person, just in the way he was. When he even sat in class, when someone would say something funny, he would cover his face while smiling and laughing. He was a very timid person, very bashful human being. So I called him and I said, Sheikh, there's a situation that I have. There's this guy, he married a girl. The guy's African American, he converted to Islam. The girl is from Desi background, and they got into a little bit of a tiff, and so he divorced her 3 times. He got really mad and said, divorce, divorce, divorce. So they asked me the situation, and I kind of told them, the standard position among the 4 schools of thought is this. So that guy pulled me on the side and he said to me, Sheikh, if this marriage ends, I'm not doing this to hold you hostage. Like, he was being honest. I could tell when someone's being real with me. He said, look, man, if this marriage is over, most likely I'm just going to leave Islam and go back to my old faith. I'm not holding the faith, hostage. I'm not threatening you in any way. I'm just telling you facts. Like, this is where I am in life right now. So I picked up the phone and I called my sheikh and I asked him, I said, Sheikh, what do I do here? On one side, there is this orthodox position on divorce and marriage, and on the other hand, we have this brother over here who's telling me the reality of the crossroads of life that he's at. And the sheikh, he scolded me first. He said, why are you even asking this question? preserving people's iman comes before anything else. Without iman, there is no fiqh. Without iman, there is no Islamic law to act upon. So this is a very tricky issue. And you know, the question, I'm not sure if I have an answer in this Q&A right here, because at least the way I perceive the question, it seemed to be about
Inclusive.
women and youth inclusivity.
Yes.
Yeah. The way I perceive the question, at least, I mean, women and youth inclusivity, I don't think there's really much anything there. I can touch on that if you'd like to. I think Ustad Purmul did a great job at addressing that issue of that inclusivity. But if we're just talking about judicial rulings and the framework of how to modernize Islamic law, everything I said thus far applies. But if we add the second element to it, this last element to it, which is including youth and sisters in our community, there is no question here. The fact that we're even having this conversation is mind-boggling. This deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not sent for any one race or any one segment of society. It was sent for all of mankind. And the more we gatekeep or hold people out of their right, the more harm that comes to them, and it cascades down to generations that will follow. It involves leadership and empowerment for people to come forward and raise their voice, because if we have masajid and institutions that are representing the community and the youth aren't able to raise their voice on the challenges that face them and be a part of the solutions that they are caught in, the problems that they are facing, they're not allowed to be a part of those solutions, how will those solutions actually be meaningful? But while we're bringing people, in particular youth, into leadership positions, it can't just be an open door that let's come in and let's just see what happens. It needs to be a well thought out process. What I mean by this is, while we want our youth to come into positions of leadership, we need to make sure they are given the opportunity to develop into those leaders. That tarbiyah is happening. That they have a chance to come and study their deen. And the same thing with sisters. The sisters in our community, they want to learn. I teach at a seminary. At Qalam Seminary this year, we have 600 students that are studying full-time, 9 a.m. in the morning to 3 p.m., 5 days a week. It is monumental, it's historical.
MashaAllah.
Thank you so much. But you know, maybe the round of applause part, and don't do it, I can't solicit it, is the fact that when you look at the gender balance there, when you're seeing the sisters that are there, and I'm hearing them, I'm listening to them, and they're telling me their stories of what they've gone through to come here. And I'm sitting there from a teacher's standpoint looking at the student body, and I'm thinking to myself that with this sort of education that goes out to the youth and to the sisters, the change that will occur is unimaginable. Look, if you look at, I'm going to make one more reflection, then I'll pass it on. I've definitely spoken longer than I should have. Okay. Imam Nadim, please pardon me. Yeah. I saw Ustad Purmul. She went into lecture mode, so I was like, okay. No, not at all. It was good content, but so.
I had to represent for more than one sister, that's why.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Ustad Purmul came loaded today. When she saw Bilal, she said, I'm going to rinse this guy out. May Allah reward you, because every time I see Bilal, I have the same emotion. I've known Bilal from when he was much younger in college. He was one of the young guys that I would hang out with in my off imam hours. He's actually from Chicago too. His whole family, I know them all really well. So khair, the last point I wanted to share. Giving our sisters a chance to speak and be involved and be at that table, and also empowering them and the brothers and the youth equally, is the lifeline of what happens next in the ummah. Honestly, it is. And if anyone has legal issues with this, let's come and talk. There really isn't that much legal discussion on this front. On this front, when it comes to gender interaction, there are guidelines of our deen on haya and modesty. There are some basic guidelines on how gender should interact when they're with one another. But as far as brain power goes, as far as strategy goes, as far as planning goes, as far as implementation goes, we need to work together as a team, as an ummah. When people see themselves and the people that are in front of them, when the sisters see only one right now, but inshallah many more Muslema Purmuls, Ustad Muslema Purmuls sitting here, they will be inspired, just as they see Imam Yusuf, who inspired many young men from Dallas to go and study. You want to see yourself and people in front of you. Anyway, khair, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and put barakah in the words that we say.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. Takbir. Takbir. Jazakallah khair, Mufti Sahib. Very nice, MashaAllah, for enlightening us in different perspective aspects of it. Jazakallah khair. I have two more questions. I don't want to take over the time. One question for Imam Nadim, and then and then wrap up with the sister Muslema at the end. So that way, I get that a lot. I get picked on a lot. So it's just a muhabba. So I like it when people do that, mashallah. So Imam Nadim, quick question for you. This is more on culture sensitivity. Since you've been Imam of the community for many years, from your experience aspects, how can we navigate culture differences within our community to foster a more inclusive environment?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I always say this, that today when you talk to a lot of people in your Muslim communities, the problem is that many people believe that we have such a broken community, we have too many problems, that there is no way that we can overcome all of our challenges. And when people say that, I usually have to remind them that if you go back and you study the history of Makkah, Makkah was not a perfect society. If you study Medina, there are ahadith where you have men who are coming to the Prophet ﷺ that, Ya Rasulullah, I have committed zina. Women who have coming to the Prophet, I've committed zina. Men who are being brought who are drinking. And the reason why, if you think about it, there was no perfect society in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because Allah wants us to understand that there is no perfect situation. Because if the society of the Prophet ﷺ was perfect, then what can we look up to? So keeping that in mind, if you study the community of the Prophet ﷺ, not every single person was from the same Arab tribe. They all came from different backgrounds. They all came from different ethnicities. They came from different tribes that were at each other's throats before Islam. They themselves were at each other's throats before Islam. But subhanAllah, after Islam, they became a different community. So keeping that in mind, in our communities, in our Muslim communities, and a lot of times I'm going to have to make sure I keep in mind that when I speak, I don't speak just as a Dallas native, but I have to take off my Dallas cap and address everyone. This has to come from the top all the way to the bottom. And this begins, let me tell you honestly, the problem is that many of our board members, and I'm not saying this, please take this with a grain of salt, but when you have board members of masajid who were born and raised overseas, and they're trying to fix every single problem based on what they learned overseas, trust me, you are going to disconnect from everyone in your community. I'm being honest. This is why when Mufti Sahib said, there has to be a way to integrate the youth. Yes, the youth will come in. Yes, they will have to be taught. Yes, they will have to be trained. But we got to put our trust in our youth. We got to put our trust in our women and our sisters. That's the only way going forward. So the imam, and to begin with, when I say from the top from the top bottom to the bottom, that means that the board members and the imams have to be on the same page too. I can honestly tell you, when you have a masjid, even if you have multiple shuyukh, multiple imams who are all on the same page, then you will see a difference in your community. You will see the people coming into your community. But when the board and the imam, board mostly from overseas, and the imam born and raised here in this country, and they don't see eye to eye, and they don't focus on racial inclusivity and women inclusivity and youth inclusivity, trust me, there is no hope for that community. As I said earlier, it will only remain as a population, but it will not be a community because there is no unity in that community. Keeping this in mind, I want to stress that we have to understand, we have to talk to our community. I had a brother one time came to the masjid. If you saw this brother, he was a, if you saw this brother, this is a Caucasian guy. He was all tatted up. And he was he was completely bald. Now, imagine a masjid where you have a bunch of desi uncles, okay? Seeing a Caucasian guy coming through, all tattoos, completely bald, what is the very first thing that's coming to their mind? And I could see this guy coming to the masjid and he feels out of place. And I went to this guy and I asked him, "Assalamu alaikum, brother." He says, "Wa alaikum salam." I said, "Where are you from?" Like, we got chatting. I mean, we began to chat. And he told me, he came back the next day, by the way, alhamdulillah. He came back the next day to the masjid. And then the third day he came back. And on the third day he told me that, you know what, I may not come back again. I was just here for a few days. But he says that when I first walked into the masjid, the way the people were looking at me, I felt like turning around and going back. And he says that I came inside, you're the only person who actually began talking to me, and you made me feel like I was at home. And he goes, for that, I will remember that forever. This is the inclusivity that you and we need to create. MashaAllah. Nothing, let me make, I'm gonna, this last thing, inshallah. I have nothing against our, mashallah, our uncles, the people who migrated to this country. They played a significant role in building the masajid. And our communities are forever indebted to them for spending that money and building our masajid. You have to give them credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
Give them credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we are now living in times where we need to start thinking forward.
Yeah.
Give the imam the liberty, give the imam the authority. Let him do what he needs to do to bring the community together. Don't get in his way. Support him. Assist him. Give him the resources to succeed. And not only that, but when anyone comes to in our masajid, make them feel at home. If the masajid are known as the spiritual hospitals, the spiritual clinics, if we close the spiritual clinics, where are people going to find the solution to their spirituality?
Allah.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. Ameen.
MashaAllah. Takbir. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. So I have a last question for you, Sister Muslema. MashaAllah. There's a question regarding on gender no, actually, I'll take that back. It's the youth engagement. That's the topic, main topic. Youth engagement. What are some practical strategies for engaging and empowering youth within our community? With that said, how can we ensure our youth, especially sisters, their voices are heard and valued in the community? That's the most important thing that people want to hear.
Barakallahu fikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Youth engagement is also something that has to go beyond tokenism. So I was born and raised in America. I was raised in the American Muslim Masjid. All I heard growing up was the youths are the future. I heard this everywhere and I was like, wow, they really care about us. And then you'd go and you'd have an idea and then it doesn't matter, like no one has time for it. They weren't mean, alhamdulillah, God bless them, nobody was mean, but there was definitely like, that's very nice, it's very patronizing sometimes, right? And so there's many levels of it, but I want to say when we're talking about youth, if we're talking about past the age of maturity in Islam, there's a particular way that we want to deal with that category of young people, but it really does start at childhood. It starts when they're in the Sunday school and they're in the Islamic school. And before coming to the conference, I heard some really unfortunate Islamic school stories. Really unfortunate Islamic school stories. It wouldn't have fazed me 30 years ago, but we can't afford to be doing this in 2024. And I was like, you know what? We need to have an event called Unspired. Unspired. What happens when you put the psycho-spiritual needs of children last is you're building not only a community culture of authoritarianism, but also mediocrity. They don't care. You've yelled at them all day long, and they're 6 years old. One kid said to their mom when they came home from a Sunday school program, a weekend for the summer school, which was, the time I hate the most. This is a 5-year-old. This is a 5-year-old who comes to his mom and he says, prayer time is the worst. When it's time, that's when they yell at us the most. Okay, so I understand we want to do programs for kids, but who do you have in charge of being in front of your children? And again, this idea of, okay, but these are all volunteers. It's better for the child to stay home with their parents and get a mediocre education where they love Allah and they love the Quran and they love their deen than for them to go to these terribly organized, terribly funded, like so-called educational programs where they come out traumatized, not wanting to know about deen, not feeling like they don't want to read and study and memorize the Quran. And I did chaplaincy for a while at university campuses. So I heard the stories of adults who went through bad childhoods in masajid. Okay, I heard their stories. This happened, the imam said this happened, the Sunday school teacher said this, the Islamic school teacher did this. You think children are resilient. Look, they're getting A's on their report card, they're coming home. Okay, when they're 18, when they're 20, when they're 25, what are they doing then? Where's their hijab then? Where's their love of the Quran then? I remember there was a convert to Islam in MSA, and another MSA brother was there, and he told the convert to Islam, I'm so jealous of you. And the MSA brother said, why? And he said, because I see you reading the Quran, and you're like new to Islam, and you like love the Quran. And he said, because of what they did to me in the Islamic school, I can't pick up the Quran. So youth, we need to stop saying youth are the future, and we need to say youth are the present, like they're right now. We need to take care of them right now. And even the story about like a person coming into the masjid, I do a children's program, once a week, and it's like with songs and art, and we incorporate the lesson, so it's like very interactive. But one of the things we did for the kids is we had this activity where we had one kid step out of the room, and we told all the kids in the room, we said, imagine the person who's coming in is like a repulsive, forgive me, parents, forgive me, because there's a lesson in this, is like a repulsive little, like, let's say it's a dog, okay? And it's like, I don't know, like been in mud and it's disgusting and it has all this garbage on it and it's walking in and wants to sit right next to you, but it's covered in nasty stuff, okay? You have to imagine the kid that's coming in is this person. And you're not allowed to say a single word. You're just supposed to keep this in your imagination as you look at them. So this is a group of like literally 4 to 11-year-olds, okay? Very wide range. And every kid, by the way, wanted to do this experiment, even though they saw the other kids do it. So the kid comes in without a word. All the kids look at them, repulsed. What are you doing here, type of thing. I don't want you next to me, without saying a single word. And we asked the kid, how did you feel? And they said, scared, and like I wanted to leave. Then we had the kid leave the room, and then we said, the same kid, we told, now when the kid comes in, I want you to imagine this is your best friend. You miss your best friend. You haven't seen them all summer. It's the first day of school, and you just found out that this best friend is going to be sitting right next to you in class. And you see them into the classroom, and you're so excited to let them know that they're going to be sitting right next to you. And we had the kids imagine this without saying a single word. Nothing. They just look at the kid. So the kid comes back in, and everyone is staring at this kid with a different feeling in their heart, a different intention in their heart. And they asked the kid, what did you feel? How do you feel? And they said, I felt like everyone cared about me. I felt like everyone cared about me. I felt happy. And the other thing is every single kid, within 20 seconds, they were smiling. The other kids, again, they're not speaking. Intention is very powerful. Okay, so we need to move past words, the youth, and we need to actually, this intention. I love the youth. When I see a young person in the masjid, let me love them, right? Because it's not even you have to do a program. They know when they're loved. When you look at someone with love, they know that you love them. When you care about them, even if you don't say a single word, they feel that. When that convert came into the masjid and interacted with you, he knew, even if you wouldn't have said a single word, if you just sat next to him, he would have known that you cared about him. That's how powerful intention is. And so, again, I feel like most of these issues are actually very deeply spiritual issues. When someone walks into the masjid and everyone mad dogs the new person in the musalla, what do you think they're going to feel? So it's not just that the imam has to have the right message, but it's a community effort to be like, every time I go to the masjid, I'm going to love and serve every person who walks in through that door. Whether it's a woman, whether it's a young person, whether it's an elderly person, I'm going to love and serve my ummah. That's an everybody duty, fard ayn for us collectively. All right, or fard kifaya, I should say, for us collectively. That people come in and they feel safe. They come in, they feel loved, they feel cared about. If I come into your house as a guest, I know for a fact, because Muslims are amazing at Islamic hospitality. No one can outrank Muslims in hospitality when someone walks into someone else's home. But when it comes to the house of Allah, which we should have more of a sense of hospitality for people who come there, right? We should not just be the guests of that house. We are the hosts of that house for everyone who's coming into that house. And let's practice that hospitality with every person in the masjid, whether they're young and whether they're old. In terms of getting their voices heard, if you care about people, you listen to them. You don't just talk at them. If you care about that, as I'm saying, it's spiritual. If I actually care about young people, I'm going to sit and I'm going to enjoy the time I spend with them. I love my children's program because I love the kids. I don't yell at them because I don't want to yell at them. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
They're beautiful children. They say children are awliya because they have no sins. Yeah. So I'm the one who's blessed to be in their company. You know what I'm saying? So these are things that on a spiritual level, we have to work on ourselves so that these feelings that are pushing people out, can be replaced by other feelings that are welcoming people in. I've already spoken too much, forgive me. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. So, Jazakallah khair. May Allah accept you. So we're wrapping up for the session. Dr. Yusuf, would you like to do conclusion dua for us? Dua, please. Inshallah.
This faqir is fond of du'as in Quran. I will read as dua a few of them, but I cannot go into detail their importance. We discussed today men and women. Okay. Asiya Walida, wife of Pharaoh, fantastic lady. رب ابن لي بيتا في الجنة ونجني من القوم الظالمين. Amin. Young people, Ashabul Kahf, people of cave. إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. Fantastic short dua. Of course, long, nice duas. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا لا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Fantastic. Adam Baba, his wife, قالا ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. Generic, fantastic dua. وقل رب أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. Fantastic dua. Of course, وقل رب أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. May Allah accept our prayers, our du'as, our intentions. With the way I will add a bit, I will be a bit biased, Turkish side. You allow me? In I will add Surah Al-Fatiha, 3 Surah Al-Ikhlas. Our teachers used to say like that. For the ones who served Ummah, from your people, relatives, friends, Aba, Ajdad, Ikhwan, Akhawat, A'mam, Ammat, Akhwal, Khalat, the blood-related ones, in-laws, Sihran-related ones, who served Ummah, passed away, they are waiting in their graves, our du'as. So, lastly, 3 Surah Al-Ikhlas, everybody must read inside, 1 Fatiha.
Jazakallah khair. We are concluded with the du'as. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair to all the speakers for coming out here today, sharing your knowledge with us. Inshallah Rabbil Alameen. May Allah accept all you guys. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in your house, put barakah in your family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy upon you and give you success in this dunya and akhirah. At the same time, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all the audience over here. Oh, mashallah. Jazakallah. Mashallah. Mashallah. Jazakallah khair to the entire audience as well too for being here today with us. And also being part of our session. Is your duty as you get the knowledge and you learn from us, please accept us and make dua for all the speakers. Jazakallah khair, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I know we have a lot of guests who are visiting Dallas from out of town, but I just want to draw your attention for less than 60 seconds. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us all 10 fingers. If I start counting, the fingers will basically be very off. Our beloved Sheikh Yusuf Ziya Kavacki is one of the most respected Islamic scholars that we have today in the world. Right from an early age of 8, he has been a muazzin, hafiz al-Quran, qari, lawyer, PhD, visiting professor, mentor, philosopher, scholar, guide, member of Islamic Society of North America, Shura for multiple years, member of the Fiqh Council of North America for multiple years, more than 25 years Imam of the Dallas Central Mosque, a person who has traveled around the world educating people about Islam. So we are immensely grateful to Sheikh Yusuf for coming to Dallas from Turkey. And we are immensely grateful to Sister Gulhan, his wife, his 3 amazing daughters. Sister Alif is here, Sister Rauda is here, who is a 3-time member of parliament. Sister Marwa Kavacki is here, who is a former ambassador to Malaysia. Currently now, inshallah, will be an ambassador again to another country. So give our beloved Sheikh Yusuf a warm Texas-sized takbir. Takbir! 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 And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant Sheikh Yusuf and his family long life, good health, so that we all can continue to benefit from his knowledge, from his wisdom. And we are immensely, immensely grateful to Sheikh Yusuf for honoring us with his presence at the 61st Annual ISNA Convention. Please enjoy the rest of the convention. May Allah bless all of you. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
The 61st Annual ISNA Convention, the American Muslim, forging faith and action.